Samvega is a moment, it's a Sanskrit word that describes a moment where you feel like your world is falling apart. And I think we all go through that. You feel like everything you thought was the steady, predictable, dependable world of yours just collapses around you. And you have a moment of sort of desperation, dissolution, disillusionment, all of that. And in that moment, usually there's some treasure to be found. But at the time, it feels like trash. It feels like your whole world's gotten trashed.
What if real lasting transformation happens when we're willing to face our shadows, the messy, uncomfortable parts of ourselves we'd rather not look at? And what if the things we avoid out of fear or shame are actually the treasures that wake us up? I'm Carrie Jacobs-Crovetto, executive coach and meditation teacher, and this is Finding Treasures in the Trash. Through raw, unfiltered conversations, I invite you to turn toward what you've disowned and begin integrating it back into the whole beautiful human you were meant to be. Your treasure doesn't always live in the light. Sometimes it's buried in the trash. So, grab your gloves, let's go dumpster diving. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Finding Treasures in the Trash. I'm Carrie Jacobs-Crovetto, and have you ever wondered about what's in the stars for you? Or what signs you can read in life? Well, guess what? I have an amazing guest and friend with me today who is an expert. I want to welcome Vish Chatterji. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm so excited to be on Finding Treasures in the Trash. I've been watching your journey and your growth in this podcast from afar and from nearby. And I'm just delighted to be on a podcast with a dear friend, a fellow spiritual seeker, and somebody who shares the memory with me of having visited the magical place of Rishikesh in the Himalayas. There are few people on this earth that have visited in that time when it was really a spiritually powerful vortex. It still is. It's just a little more hidden now.
Well, and we're going to get into all of that. I can't wait. And I couldn't be in more agreement, Vish. From the moment you and I met, there was just like a heart lock, I feel like, in our soul calling. And so it's such a pleasure for me to have you here. But I want to tell people a little bit about you and why I love you so much and why I'm so excited for your journey. We share a little bit in common in that we and you were in the corporate world. You had a lot of success, which I'll let you share, but you were in engineering and marketing and you rose through the ranks. You did big companies and startups. And then, like me, you had kind of a moment in life, and that moment led you to a big change. And now you are a Vedic astrologer, you are an executive coach, you have written 2 books, you have a brand new podcast out that's doing very well called Bending the Light on Magic Thread Media. And most importantly, you're a great husband and a dad. And with all of that, I really share so much in common with your journey.
Oh, thank you.
So I thought we could start there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Talk a little bit about that. People, I think, on this show love hearing the story of how someone kind of arrived to present time.
Oh, goodness. How much time do we have? There's a whole book there. There's a whole book there. But let me try to introduce in a brief way. So I never in my life imagined I'd be a Vedic astrologer. I mean, that just seemed like way out in the stars, right? So I grew up in an Indian family, and my Indian family from Bengal, we were quite religiously inclined, and you could say the Hindu religion has a big spiritual component to it. But I grew up in Hong Kong. So I grew up in a westernized environment in Asia. So Hong Kong was a British colony. And even though it was a British colony, Hong Kong just aspired to be American. They loved America. So we had this sort of view of American culture, American life. My dad always said, one day, son, when you grow up, you must go to America. That is the land of dreams. That's the place to go. So as a little boy in Hong Kong, I always had this vision that one day I would go to the US. And, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I knew the US to be a land of cowboys. Because I watched cowboy movies and I was like, it's the Wild West, and they walk around guns on their hips and they have a shootout, and then whoever wins gets to, win. But, when I was a kid, I saw in Hong Kong a lot of men, especially men, because that was the working world in Asia, in dark business suits, wearing suits and ties. And I thought to myself, when I grew up, I want to be one of those powerful men. I'm going to be a powerful executive wearing a suit and tie every day and commanding the world.
Here you were, you're working in automotive as an engineer?
As an engineer, an engine engineer. I was an engine calibrator. And because we were working on Mustangs, Ford Mustangs specifically, we used to drive these Mustangs across the desert where we get fast roads, but also the desert heat. And in our group, we were called the Calibrator Cowboys.
So you made your dream come true.
We're Calibrator Cowboys riding Mustangs in the desert. But, they're Ford Mustangs, and we're doing the engine calibration and trying to get more horsepower out of the engine. And horsepower is a word that came from horses as the main mode of transport in the old American days, right?
I love it. So you came full circle. You kind of fulfilled your U.S. American dream of becoming a cowboy. So were you happy? Like when you were doing it, you said you're having fun, you're going about your life, you kind of did the thing, you saw the people who had the shiny cars and the dark suits, and you're like, I'm going to go that direction.
And I got that job, right?
Because I got that job.
And I wore a suit every day. So at Chrysler Corporation in Auburn Hills and at Mercedes headquarters in Stuttgart, the standard dress was a suit. So I wore a suit and a tie every day to work. And I got to drive some fancy cars. In fact, I ended up with a C-Class Mercedes through the employee deal. And so I was like, okay, I've arrived. Here I am. I've got it all. And it was really an incredible job, I would say. But I had, and we talked about this idea of a Samvega moment, and we'll explain what that is, but a moment where your illusion kind of gets punctured, right? You think everything's great and something punctures it. And I remember getting promoted to, there was like a band level in the Daimler organization. It was called band level 94, right? And once I hit that level, I was like, okay, how am I going to get the next level? And that was already a senior enough position. But the vice president of the product planning department said to me, he said, Vish, you got to put your time in. Like I put in 20 years before I got to the next band level, and you got to put your time in. And I'm like, I don't have 20 years in this one level. Like that seems crazy. Like I need to move faster than that. And I looked around me and everybody at my band level was already 10 years older than me. So I was like, okay, I'm younger by everybody in that level by 10 years. I mean, how long is this going to take? I'm going to be stuck, even though I love the work. I want some career progression, right?
Okay, so in your early 30s, you're in that like moment, right? With so many young people and particularly young men are like, this is my time, right? I'm my rising star. I got to push hard. You're in your sort of push hard years and you're having fun and you're feeling happy and you come out of this hard time unscathed. Is there any part of you at that time? You talked about the Samvega moment. What is the Samvega moment? You talked about it's like we pierce the illusion, the veil of illusion, right? So our lives are going on and we have the status quo and the Samvega moment comes and it pierces the veil of illusionment. And we wonder like, hold on a minute, am I doing life right? Am I doing my soul journey right?
Yeah, Samvega. So it's a Sanskrit word that describes a moment where you feel like your world is falling apart. And I think we all go through that. You feel like everything you thought was the steady, predictable, dependable world of yours just collapses around you. And you have a moment of sort of desperation, disillusionment, all of that. And in that moment, usually there's some treasure to be found. But at the time, it feels like trash. It feels like your whole world's gotten trashed.
Gosh, so I feel like the entire world is in a Samvega moment. Currently, we're in like this global disillusionment phase, but also on a personal level, we're feeling it. I know these moments too that you described, Vish, because I feel like I was going along too in my career, and I'm of Lebanese descent, and my dad said, you should be a teacher or secretary. So I was very much about like, I'm wearing the suit, I'm getting the car, I'm proving him wrong. I'm fighting the masculine archetype. And I remember going along like in my 20s and maybe I'd just be like, even just walking down to get the mail or taking a walk on the beach after work. I lived in LA and thinking, just having a second moment of like, wait a minute, it feels like there's something more going on here in my body. Like I felt there was like this body sensation I would get. Have we created all this? Is there something more? Am I buying into something? And then I'd be like, that's very hard to think about, or it's very inconvenient to think about, or what else am I going to do, or how else am I going to make money? And I would just keep going with my life.
Yeah, and that's what we do, right? So a Samvega moment, I love this is correlating to the title of your podcast, right? That the Samvega moment is the trashiest moment. Everything feels like trash. Everything feels like garbage. And that feeling is so horrible that we do everything in our power to prevent that feeling ever happening. So we make ourselves busy. We make ourselves close our eyes. We make ourselves not believe the whiteboard in my case, right? My friends are saying, hey, the industry you're in is about to collapse. And I'm like, I don't think you're right. You must have done something wrong, because I want to stay with the status quo. I don't want to have to face that reality. And I would say the other Samvega moment is when the vice president said to me, Vish, you're talented, you're good, but you got to put your time in. And when I thought about the time, I was like, there's decades. I'm like, that's not going to work for me. Right. So that's a Samvega moment. I'm like, well, I got the degree, I got the education, I got the master's degree, I did well in school, I got this prestigious job at Daimler Chrysler, and now this is what it's for. So I think that's what happens is I did this, I got to here, and now what? This is what's at the end of the tunnel? This sucks. That's a Samvega moment, right?
It feels like pure trash. I also remember, though, kind of being onto that, but still doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like I thought, well, what is it? I can remember I had this goal. You laugh a little bit at this goal, which was like back in the 80s, the pay was so bad. And I had this goal, like, I'm just going to get to be an account executive in the ad agency world, and I'm going to break $35,000 a year. Then at that point, I will have made it. And of course that came for me very fast. And then I thought, well, I'm going to get to be a vice president and break 100,000. Lo and behold, I'm a vice president by the time I'm 31. So I feel like there was a certain grace, because in each of those moments, I hit that point way younger than I thought I would, because I was just a crazy worker. And I remember having a moment in my apartment in New York City. I had this beautiful apartment on the Upper West Side, just gotten over $100,000, vice president at Deutsch in New York. And I can remember being on my knees in my apartment on the hardwood floor. I can remember the way the hard floor looked and felt, and thinking, I did this all to prove to my dad I could do it. And am I even happy? Crying and thinking, actually it was the impetus to me going to my first meditation retreat. But I also didn't really see a way out. Like, I was like, I'm here now. What do I do? I just got to keep going. Now, I had that interception of like going to a retreat, and it started my spiritual practice. Thank God. That's a Samvega moment, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a Samvega moment. And what you're describing is how smart people find a way to avoid having to face that. Like, just set a great goal. You know what? I want to hit 100K and I want to hit vice president. Make that your goal. Work your ass off on that. You never have to face it. You just ignore it. You just kick the can down the road, right? You just keep the can. But it does catch up eventually, right? But we find ways to sort of push it away, push it aside, fill ourselves. You know what? Let me just go buy this new bag, or let me go buy this new car, or let me just get this promotion, and I'll just focus on that, and it'll distract me from having to face the trash. But eventually it does catch up. It finds you. Karma finds you. Dharma finds you. Your life purpose will find you eventually, right? And so we have these moments where all of a sudden, everything that we thought was important to us, it's like the rug gets pulled out from underneath us. And we're like free falling. Like, what the heck? And that's the moment where there's an opportunity to find the treasure.
So when did the big moment happen? So you went into tech and you excelled there too.
Carrie. Everyone's waiting for the big moment. I think everybody listening, you've had moments. You have had the moments. If you look back in your life, there are moments where you felt disillusioned, you felt not seen, you felt like it was all for naught. It was all for nothing. And that's the moment where something in you shifted, and you shifted a little bit in one direction. And I believe that life is a series of these Samvega moments, these moments of disillusionment that little by little point you towards a certain path.
I want to hear about more of yours then.
So I think what happened was I had a really successful time at Belkin, and I ended up creating a division at the company, a very successful division. It's a couple of $100 million a year division. We hired people, we built up a business. We got amazing placement of product at the big retailers. At the end of that, I thought, wow, this is going to be great. And then all of a sudden I got plucked to lead another group that was failing. And that sucked, right? So this was another Samvega moment, but I didn't have a choice because they're like, you either do it or you're not in the company anymore.
Did you stay?
I took the deal, but I really turned things around, and that gave me a lot of accolades and a lot of recognition. And another company picked me up from that. They recruited me out of Belkin. They said, hey, you're really talented. We want you to come run product innovation for us. And it was a company called Universal Electronics. And that became sort of one Samvega moment into this great tech company that was struggling. And I joined, and in 2.5, 3 years of leading the innovation charge, we quintupled the stock price. It was tremendous. So again, a great ride, a treasure that came for me financially as well as professionally. But at the end of that journey, again, the CEO asked me, he said, okay, we've hit our numbers. We've hit our great quintupling of the stock price. We've all done really well. We can tone it down now, Vish. We can get back in the box. We don't need to be so out of the box. But I had another moment. I was like, wow, it's all for this. Like here I am about to, go into the highest levels of management, and I'm being asked to basically say yes and think in the box more. I was like, I'm not wired for that. That was probably one of my major Samvega moments where I said, enough is enough. I can't be in a corporate structure. I don't work this way. I think the startup is the way to go. And so like you, Carrie, I jumped into a startup, started up a tech company in the Internet of Things days, IoT, and built up a little company that was trying to make revenue and out for fundraising. And I was like, okay, here I am again. I'm back in it. Like, this is great. I love it. I'm busy. I'm fundraising. I'm talking to investors. I'm meeting all these, Sand Hill Road up in Northern California, in San Francisco area, Sand Hill Road, all the big VCs. We're a promising, exciting startup, and all the pitch competitions. I'm building product. And then another Samvega moment, because the lead investor at the last minute pulled out, and the board also came in and said, look, you can't keep running this company with this co-founder of yours. I had a very difficult co-founder. He was a brilliant guy, super smart, but just rubbed every investor the wrong way. And the investor said, look, you got to get him out of the company and restructure it because he's not good for this. And we won't fund you if you keep him on board. And I was so disillusioned with the investor issues and the dynamics and having to fire my co-founder and go through this legal battle with him.
So painful.
Out of the blue, somebody reached out and said, hey, Vish, I just got a promotion to a VP of product at this big company, and I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm wondering if you would consider coaching me. I'm like, what is coaching?
There's that word again.
And so I Googled coaching, and I found some, some stuff. And so I made an About Me page. It was about.me. It was like a single web page that showed what a great coach I am. I just made it up. I put it on there.
Okay. For those coaches out there, do not make up your coaching page.
Yeah, but when you're an entrepreneur, you do what it takes, right? So somebody's
we're going back
interested
in time
customer. Here. The customer wants to know if you have product, and you're like, yes, I have product. So you make up a mock-up, right? So I made up a page, and this individual showed it to their HR department, showed the CEO, and I got hired as a coach. So I was like, great, my first coaching client.
So were you still at the startup at the time? And so now you're coaching on the side.
Kind of doing
so you kind of did a side hustle.
The side, the startup misery, misery of the startup, but then this coaching thing sort of appearing out of this whole thing. And then this client I had ended up referring me to somebody else and referred me to somebody else. And all of a sudden I had 4 or 5 coaching clients, all paying decent coaching rates with my little one page about me of what I do as a coach. And then this misery of the startup. And I was like, what am I doing here? I love this thing. I'm enjoying this human to human interaction, helping people think through leadership challenges in whatever way I was doing. I'm a former executive. I have an MBA. I mean, I'm not totally zero when it comes to coaching. I've mentored and led lots of people. But then I was like, I got 4 or 5 of these clients now. I owe them some kind of training and coaching. I need to do something. And I'm a heartfelt person. So I Googled heart and coaching. And I came across the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute, some article I think the New York Times wrote on heart-centered approach to coaching. And I was like, that's what I need. And I Googled them, got a phone number. I called it up. Our dear friend Jennifer Kalishu answered the phone.
Hi, Jenny, if you're
I,
out there.
yeah, Jenny, if you're listening, she answered the phone and I said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I've got these coaching clients. We have a program starting in 3 weeks. Do you want to enroll? I said, I'm in. And so 3 weeks later, I arrived at the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute and learned that what I was doing with my clients was not coaching at all. I was advising, I was mentoring. I wasn't really asking the deep questions that Berkeley's training taught me.
I'm really glad you're bringing this piece up. It's a sore spot a little bit for me and for a lot of coaches because mentoring and advising, and if you're looking for a coach, people may be saying, just tell me what it is I need to do. But in heart-centered approach and in real coaching, the person you're coaching is being led to think and feel their own way through it, which is very much a skill that has to be trained. And the idea that you can just tell someone and it will stick, maybe it will stick for that one particular problem, but the chances of it sticking over time are not as high. I just want to highlight this moment of what you're saying, which is you can be great as a CEO. You can be great as a leader. You can be a great mentor. You can show people the way on your team, but to actually do real, long-lasting, heart-centered, depth-centered, somatic-centered coaching, it's a different skill set altogether.
And I got real world data to prove it, right? Because I had those 5 clients before I went to Berkeley's training. I did the training, and post-training, as I got through it, I noticed a completely different way that I showed up with those clients. They noticed a difference and they progressed in their career. Almost all of them ended up getting either promoted or moving to a different role that was much more suited to them at a more senior position. So this is where the yoga world and the coaching world sort of coincided for me. Because one of the things Berkeley asked is, what makes you different as a coach? What makes you different as a coach? What is your unique thing? And I realized that my entire corporate career, as I was climbing the ladder, trying to become a cowboy in a suit or whatever I was working towards, there was always a yoga practice. There was always a meditation practice. Every day without fail, I woke up in the morning, I did my yoga practice, I did my meditation practice, and then I went forth and conquered. And what I realized is after 20 years of yoga, I could potentially bring the teachings of the yoga philosophy and merge them and integrate them with teachings of management philosophy. So it's kind of like MBA meets yogi. My first book was called The Business Casual Yogi. How do we take the business casual and merge it with the yogi? The yogi in a suit, you could have called it. But what I learned is that a lot of the things I'd learned in the yoga tradition made sense for leadership and management. And so that was my discovery from Berkeley Executive Coaching, is I'm an East meets West coach.
And this is something you and I have talked about a lot because for me anyway, it's been so easy to feel my way through this. I know that what I do in meditation, what I did in my yoga practices, and what I did in all my healing practices was directly applicable to my life as a leader. I found it hard, I don't know about you, to sort of explain those two worlds in ways that people don't think it's really woo, or what would Vedic astrology have to do with a decision I need to make as a CEO?
So the thing is, it turns out the yoga system is not a gymnastics exercise routine. It's not a twist your body in a pretzel. It's not that. It's actually a system of human development. It's a system of personal development. It's a system to connect to your deeper, authentic self. And today, leadership is all about how do you be a more authentic leader? Well, there's a system to connect your authenticity, and it's the yoga system, right? So naturally, the philosophies of yoga teach you to connect to your higher self, which is what leaders are looking to do anyway. But the correlation that I found in the yoga tradition, there's a thing called a guru. A guru is like some teacher. But we use this guru kind of in an odd way with a capital G, where some, Indian dude with a beard on a big pedestal and talking to thousands of people, and they're like worshiping his every word and falling at his feet. It turns out that's not a guru. That's something made up in modern times. A guru is actually a human being that serves as a servant to your own inner guru, your inner wisdom. So everybody has an inner being in them that is wise and connected, and we call it higher self in the spiritual intelligence tradition. And so a guru is somebody that is a servant to your inner guru. somebody who serves your inner wisdom. And what I learned in coaching is you recognize that the client has all the wisdom within them. And your job as a coach is to be subservient to their inner wisdom. Your job as a coach is to ask them questions that help unlock their own innate intelligence. At the end of the day, the client knows best. And we're talking about coaching high performance people, right?
Yeah.
Like in our work, we're coaching people who are very highly functional. They have the answers in them. Our job is to bring that out of them. And so this idea of a coach as a servant to the inner and higher intelligence of the client aligns with this idea that a guru in the yoga tradition is a servant to your inner wisdom as well.
I want to bring this podcast so far together, this episode, which is, as you were describing your ascent and your drive, I could see all of my Stanford students, right? Because I'm facilitating a course at Stanford, touchy-feely, OB 374. And usually the students, they're MBA students. So they're anywhere from they're usually on the slightly older side, right? So they're like 25 to 45, let's say. And they're in that sweet spot. Grow, next thing. How do I get there? And in most cases, they've been high performance their whole life, achievement oriented their whole life. And my guess is, from being with them for the last 5 years, I know they have regular Samvega moments. And yet that override this sort of dominant part in them that's been conditioned to succeed tells them, keep going. And I'm there to facilitate their ability to win, but I'm also there to facilitate a deeper level of inner wisdom that when we're skyrocketing, oftentimes we just aren't listening.
But sometimes we need that journey, right? So that's the thing is people sometimes ask me, they're like, well, if you had astrology or you spoke to an astrologer, would your journey have changed? Would you have done something differently? Now, what's interesting is when I look at my astrology chart, those moments, they're very specific markers in my birth chart. They're timings. So there's kind of sort of a time and place for everything. You have to go through the completion of certain journeys or completion of certain chapters in your life to get to the conclusion, right? It's like when you're reading a book. If you skip a bunch of chapters and go right to the end, you don't quite get the ending. You don't get the point. You have to go through the chapters because they build up and they serve the future chapters. So every chapter of my life, it served the next chapter. And had I shortcutted the chapter, it wouldn't have served in the right way and I wouldn't have got the right lesson. The reason I can sit with a senior executive now and talk about an acquisition of another business is because I've done that. And had I cut my career short, I wouldn't have had that experience of acquiring a business. Or when it's managing a team or managing a global cross-functional team, had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be able to counsel in the same way, right? So I had to go through those experiences. So none of them deserve being shortcut. But I do think it's important to find a way to always be a little bit witnessing of your journey. Right? So you're in the journey, you're running the rat race, you're in the rat race. You may not have to cut it short, but take a moment and step outside and just notice, oh yeah, there I am in the rat race. There's some time to go. Okay, and then get back into it. And that's what your daily spiritual practice does, a daily meditation, a daily sadhana, we call it in the yoga tradition, some daily connection to your higher self. That daily sort of moment to recognize, okay, I'm in this. I have to do it, but I'm not going to get so lost in it that I end up sick. Because that's what you don't want to happen. You end up so sick, you can't go to the next chapter.
I'm sitting here at the precipice of two questions. And I think I'm going to go with the question about astrology because I want to understand when you brought that in. Now you're coaching, in the story of Vish's life up until now, you're coaching and you've recently really reconnected with the Indian parts of yourself, with Vedic astrology. And so I want to bring that a bit into this episode because it's something I carry with me when I think of you, is how you've almost found parts of your soul that you've reintegrated, lifetimes and lifetimes of your soul, now into your current work. So I guess my first question is, what began that part of the journey? Like, what part of you said, okay, now I'm going to look at astrology of all things, Indian astrology, and then I'm going to go back to India and start like unpacking a little bit more of who I am.
So that Berkeley moment of, what kind of a coach are you? What makes you unique as a coach? And this idea of East meets West. For me, East meets West meant yoga philosophy meets MBA leadership. And that's how I approached coaching. And along the way, I decided to go and study yoga in a deeper way. So I went back to India. I went to Rishikesh, where I've been traveling for many, many, many times over. But I went to Rishikesh specifically to do a yoga teacher training. Like, if I'm going to talk about myself being a yoga expert, let me do the teacher training. So I did the 200-hour, went to the Himalayas, stayed in an ashram, did the very traditional approach to learning yoga. And when you do a decent yoga teacher training, you're going to come across Ayurveda. It's the mind-body medicine system. And I was intrigued because Ayurveda understands each human being as a unique individual and prescribes a certain diet, lifestyle, routine based on your particular mind-body constitution. So it kind of categorized and individualized medicine in some ways. And I found it fascinating because I thought, you know what, I want to learn this deeper. So I took some deeper studies in Ayurveda. And in Ayurveda, you understand the disease progression based on the individual unique nature of a person. But I was like, what if I applied that to leadership? Because in Ayurveda, there's a fiery type of person, there's an airy, creative type of person, there's a stamina, sort of stable, counseling kind of person. And I was like, these three archetypes, and they're called, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These three archetypes are used for disease understanding, but what if they use them to understand leadership? And
that's so cool. I never knew that. Now I got to know, what am I?
Yeah. So I would literally
Am I like the fiery one?
You probably have a combination of the fire and the earth, right?
I love it.
So what I would do with my clients, as I learned about Ayurveda and I got deeper into it, I came up with a questionnaire. Executives love questionnaires, right? It's like Myers-Briggs type indicator, disc profile. What else is there? A strengths finder, archetypes at work. I mean, there's so many now. But I was like, look, I got this Ayurvedic thing. They'll tell me if you're a fiery leader, an airy creative leader, or an earthy grounded leader. And based on that, I can make some assessments and I can say, here's the type of leader you are. Here's where your risks and vulnerabilities are. Here's where you boil over. Here's a right diet and lifestyle to support the type of leader you are. So if you're this type of leader, great that you know about your leadership tendency, but here's a lifestyle that supports that type of leadership so you don't get out of balance. And so I would give this questionnaire. But in most corporate settings, you are rewarded and promoted if you're a fiery type of leader. We have an English word for that, a type A leader. So everybody wants to be type A. Everybody chooses and almost changes their personality to be type A when it's not their natural leadership style.
That's so interesting.
So I would give my questionnaire and I'm seeing in front of me a creative, airy type of leader, but the questionnaire is coming back fire.
Because they want to be known as somebody who is excelling, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think I naturally was fire, and there was a shadow side to that. That's how finding treasures in the trash. That's the whole work that I do now has been born from the shadow of the fire. And I spent a lot of my time as a leader regrounding that earthy part. But this is so fascinating. And so
I'm bought on it.
Because Vish, how did it get to astrology?
So I'm sold on it. I'm like, it's medical. There's a doctor training me on this. People like questionnaires. I'm all good. I'm safe right now. So I go to this doctor who's my teacher. He's in Santa Cruz, Dr. Suhas. I said, Dr. Suhas, my clients are cheating on the quiz. They fill it out. Everybody's fire, but I can see in front of me, they're not really fire. There's something else. I'm missing something. The questionnaire is not working. They're cheating on the quiz. So he said, well, it's very simple, Vish. Just look at their astrology chart and you'll know the truth. I was like, astrology chart? Astrology? That's like wacko woo-woo, hocus pocus magazine crap. I don't believe in that. I'm trained as an engineer. I'm an executive. Hell, you're a doctor. Like, what are we talking about astrology here? He's like, no, look at the Indian Vedic astrology system. This is not a personality thing. This is a ground truth of the soul and how it's incarnated in this lifetime. I was like, oh, okay. So I went to a few clients that I was comfortable with. I was, let's say you were one of them. I'd say, Carrie, I'm doing an experiment here. Would you please share your birth time with me? And so I'd look up your birth time. I'd look up your chart. I'd put it on the screen. And I'd say, oh, Carrie, I notice that you have a Leo rising sign, which is true about you. And that's very fiery. You probably have a fiery nature. How does that track for you? And the client would say, what would you say to that?
Well, I would probably say that it's the thing that got me to vice president at 31.
There you go.
And it was probably also on the shadow side, the thing that found me on my knees in my apartment, having one of my big Samvega moments.
Right, because your fire, Leo, is your rising sign in your chart, and Leo is ruled by the sun, and your sun goes into the 6th house of disease and health challenges. So when you overload the fire, you'll end up with some kind of a burnout situation, which will affect your health.
That's so true, Vish. And I have to say, so first of all, I want to admit something on the air here. I'm like a 50% believer in this. I was somebody who read my astrology. I would go to like astrology psychic. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, really, is there really a map of like my soul somewhere that said, and was it really based on when I took my first breath or came into the universe? Like, I have a hard time with it. So I kind of want to know, like, I want you to convince me.
So I had a hard time too, right? I'm like, I don't know if this is true. So, hey, Carrie, share your birth info. Hey, this is what I see. I notice you're out of the 12 signs, it's Leo, and Leo is very, very fiery. And the Lord is the sun. It goes to the 6th house of health. Did you burn out? Did you have a fiery event? You said, that's so true, Vish. You just said it on air. You said,
I did.
So
I can
true.
tell you what it was.
And
I
I'm
started having,
going,
my heart started skipping.
Yeah. And
I
then
started having pre-ventricle contractions, which was where my heart got so ahead of itself. This is hilarious that I'm saying it now out loud. My heart got so ahead of itself because I was running so fast that it would skip. And as soon as I slowed down and changed my career, I barely ever get them. And it was happening all the time. So yes, I did. That did happen.
Not to get too technical, but the sun is in a very specific sub-constellation called Dhanishta. And Dhanishta is symbolized by a drum, and it's all about beats. As you know, the sun is the powerhouse of everything. The sun is like our heart in the chart. So your chart communicates to me that there was some beat issue with the heart, with burnout. And so it's things like that where I start to think like, oh my God, how does that happen? Because I'm gingerly asking a client and they're literally talking to me and explaining. And I'm like, oh my God, I see that. It's so clear. Or I say something to the client and they say, that is so true. How did you know that about me? As a scientist, as an engineer, it's that feedback after 8, 10 clients where I say something, they say, that's so true. How did you know that? I'm like, wow, there must be something here.
But was there ever a part of you that said like, am I backwards proving this by justifying whatever I've said?
So what I teach to my astrology students, I say, look, let's backward engineer everything. Find out about a person, look at the chart and see if you can see it all add up. And you keep doing that. And the more you do that, you start to get good at recognizing certain patterns. And then I meet people cold that I don't know anything about. And I say things to them and they're like, my God, that's crazy. How did you figure that out? How did you get there? And I'm like, because it's the same pattern. Like these patterns lead to this. These patterns lead to this. We do have like certain things that lead to certain things. Now, you need a little bit of context, right? I can see, oh, the chart indicates a divorce for somebody, but they haven't married yet. So it's going to be an irrelevant statement to make at that point, right? So I'll say, hey, what's your marriage situation like? So I'm in a marriage. I say, how are things right now? They'll say, oh, it's actually really, really bad. Then I'm like, okay, that karma, that particular pattern is going to start presenting and that marriage is probably going to end. But when they're single, it wouldn't have made sense. 1 year in the marriage, it wouldn't have made sense for that person, right? So I need a little bit of context. But overall, with a little bit of context, all of a sudden I'm reading things. And that's when I started to realize like, wow, there's a lot of power here. And my clients started saying to me, can you look at my chart again? Can you check this? Hey, I'm going through this really difficult time. I'm having, in their words, a moment where everything feels like I'm feeling disillusioned. And I'm like, oh, wow, the planets that lead to disillusionment are happening right now. And so I'm proving to myself that, wow, the system does really work. And unlike Western astrology, where you probably have to use a lot of intuition, Vedic astrology, you don't need a lot of intuition. They're patterns, they're dots. You add them up and it makes sense. So as an engineer, I became really intrigued, like, wow, I can use this tool. And so now in front of a Myers-Briggs or a disc profile or a, whatever archetypes at work, whatever the tools are, I've got the ultimate tool. I've got an astrology chart. I can figure out exactly what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, SWOT, strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats. I can figure out the timing of things, when things are going to happen. And if I can't figure it out, if somebody tells me what's going on in their life, I can root cause it. And I can say, hey, this is the root planet at issue here. And here's a remedy. Here's something you can do to shift the energy of that planet. And then I'm like, I can't believe I just said that. I don't know if it's going to work, but they go try it. And they report back in a month. They're like, oh my God, everything changed. All of a sudden that thing's not a problem anymore. And then I'm like, wow. So I'm getting that feedback loop over and over. And I'm realizing there's a real power here. Right.
Well, and it sounds like, okay, maybe I'm at 60% now, but I think I would have to go through it myself to prove itself to me. What comes to mind to me is like, oh, well, why am I just not manifesting that? Right? Because energy begets energy, I believe.
The idea is that whatever is in you is reflected in the universe. Like when we say in the Vedic system that, I am the universe. The universe is in me. The universe is out there and in here. And the macrocosm, so is above as is below, is what they say, right? So you are a reflection of the universe. And the moment you incarnate in human form, the pattern of where stars and planets are in the sky, they kind of reflect the journey of that incarnated soul. And so all I'm doing as an astrologer is plotting a chart or a map of the sky at the moment you're born and saying, here's these different planets and here's their various energies. So it's almost like I'm looking at a probability of energies. Carrie, when you were born, if you looked to the eastern horizon, it was the stars of Leo that were rising. Leo is represented by this lion that's the king of the jungle. Leo is represented as a fire sign that is fiery and a leadership energy. Your soul is given a boost of leadership energy in this lifetime. Now, you may not activate that energy. You may choose to just avoid it altogether, but then you're not honoring the purpose of the soul, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a probability that says, there's a very high probability that somebody born with Leo on the eastern horizon as a rising sign is going to be a leader, is going to somehow be intrigued with leadership, be involved with leadership, or be a leader themselves. Right? But like I said, the Lord goes into a certain part of the sky that causes health challenges, high probability of health challenge related to leadership. That's the underlying energy. Now, do you decide to avoid that energy, do something about it, make sure you live life in more balance so you don't burn out? Or do you go and learn for it yourself? And then down the road, an astrologer says, oh, well, this is why that happened. Right?
So, but wouldn't everyone have that? Or no? Are some people able to be leaders and burn hard and fast and they don't get health problems? Like they just have a capacity?
Well, it depends on the chart. There's 12 different rising signs, right? So you could be an Aries, you can be a Taurus, you can be a Gemini. An Aquarius is more of a follower. A Leo is more of a leader, right? So there's already that difference. And then whatever that sign is, the planet that rules it, there's a lord of every sign. Where does that go in the chart? There's 12 different locations it can go. So the permutations start to change. There's lots of combinations, right? So no two charts are exactly the same. And even if two charts are the same, people born really close to each other, the choices also change things. You have agency here.
Yeah, so there is free will.
There's free will. There's for sure free will, but there's overwhelming more energy in certain areas. Like you said, manifesting. If your chart shows that you could be a billionaire, definitely work on manifesting it. It'll likely happen for you. But if the chart has no indication of that kind of grandiose billionaire wealth, I don't care how much you try to manifest, it's not going to happen for you. So you can manifest things that are energetically already aligned.
Okay, we're almost at close here for this. I want to ask a couple more questions around your experience with all of this. So before, you sort of went through this big transition in your career, were you somebody who had a proclivity? Did you read your horoscope? Were you somebody who was into all of this? Or did this really happen sort of organically as you moved through?
Yeah, it's organically because I never would have looked at an astrology chart or a tarot card or a deck. Like I just wasn't, wired that way. I'm wired as an engineer and a sort of logical minded executive that looks for the
Mm-hmm.
data. It's because this system is proving itself to me that I'm like even behind it. I'm like, oh yeah, there's something there, right? But I'm skeptical. I mean, even today, I don't sit and read my horoscope. I don't sit and look at it. I don't consult it on a regular basis. But when something is going in a difficult direction for me and I'm having a challenge, I'll look at it and say, okay, what's going on here? What's the root cause? And can I do something to reduce the severity of it? I mean, at the end of the day, part of the Vedic tradition is avoid the suffering that is yet to come. So we can do things to avoid that suffering, right? Suffering's going to happen. That's a given, but you can do things to minimize and mitigate it. And the chart helps us realize like, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow. I should take an umbrella with me. I mean, some people may
Mm-hmm.
say, you know what? I don't care if it rains or not. I don't care if I get wet. I'm not going to take an umbrella. I'm just going to go out there and deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's nice to know the forecast. Like, hey, it's going to rain. Maybe I don't wear that outfit. Maybe I change the outfit. Maybe I wear some closed shoes. Maybe I take an umbrella. That's what astrology gives you, is a little bit of forecasting of here's the energetics and here's how to, avoid getting completely drenched by that karma.
I love it. And you've proven it out. You've proven it
So
out.
far, yeah. And a really top astrologer is only ever about 70% right. So your 60% skepticism is actually quite healthy. Like 60% I'm there, 40% I'm skeptical. Yeah, because even the best astrologer is going to be 30% wrong. And because there's free will and there's other variables, right? Like maybe the person just didn't read the chart right, or maybe you as the client are not ready to receive that particular truth. So you won't get that out of the astrologer, right? There's many, many factors at play, like at a cosmic level.
Right. And I think those Samvega moments, if we sort of ignore those and stick to the status quo and just keep climbing and keep doing, like our Samvega moment happens sort of at the end of our lives. Poof, all of a sudden, like this is what has been my direct experience. Not that my life has ended, but that
Mhm.
when I've turned towards the trashy moments, when I've fallen into them and said, what is here? What's this moment about? I actually had one this morning. I was in my kitchen and I thought to myself, my husband and I have fallen into this pattern of like, we eat dinner and then we watch a show. And I love, 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 love art and television and film. Like I love it. And I'm not
Yeah.
ashamed to say I love television. I love television. To me, it's the human experience writ large on the screen.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of shaming in certain communities, right, around TV watching. And I happened to have a conversation with a friend this morning who was like, I never watch TV. And so I went into
Oh.
this whole thing this morning and I started blaming my husband. Well, it's my husband's fault because he gets home and he's so tired and he commutes and he's like, let's just watch a show. And I had this whole moment where I was like, am I living my spiritual life deeply enough? And the truth is, I'm not. And the truth is, it's not his fault. The truth is, there's work I have to do around my own intention and commitment to myself, to my life. And that just became very apparent this morning in this moment. And rather than going back to my status quo, which would be to say, I love my husband, he's the greatest guy, and he is. And he gives me so much, and we have, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to do the thing. I had a different moment, which is like, I need to figure out how I can gain more space for my spiritual practice.
Yeah, making the space for it. But, the stories in TV shows and in movies, it's almost like, what is the treasure in a trashy show?
Totally.
Right? We talk about guilty pleasures in the TV industry. I was in Universal Electronics, we're involved with TV a lot. We always talked about this guilty pleasure. And now as an astrologer, I think, what is the treasure in a trashy show? The thing is, shows are telling human stories. At the end of the day, they're all human stories. And every show covers a range of human emotions. And in the Vedic astrology tradition, most of the teachings come through mythology. All of it comes through mythology. If you want to learn the secrets of Vedic astrology, you have to study the mythology, because the mythology is like an encoding of the secrets, an encoding of the energetic patterns of human nature. So I remember I did a retreat a few years ago, and we called it the gossip of the gods and the reality show of the planets.
I love it.
Right? Because the planets are, in their mythology, are lusting after each other, cheating on each other, getting into fights and wars. There's all sorts. I mean, it is a reality show. If you get into the stories of the planets, it is a reality show. And from it, you learn about the reality of human nature, that we have jealousy, we have envy, we have temper, we get into fight, we get into all of it. And so when you watch a modern TV production show, you're actually watching probably a mythological arc in that story. And I think a good mythologist will recognize it right away. It doesn't matter what the reality show is, what the trashy show is, they're going to see that, oh, there's a mythological arc here. And you learn something about human beings. So it's not random. So TV watching doesn't have to be a non-spiritual experience.
I love this. So I just need to have more intention in my TV watching.
Just enjoy because something's happening.
Okay.
And I think the best thing is if you can watch a TV show and say, you know what? I've seen that story before. It happened with my brother's uncle or whatever, cousin, because what happens to me is when I'm looking at a chart, somebody tells me about their life. And I'm like, you know what? I've seen this story before and I know where this story is going to go. And that's how I make predictions. I'll say, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is the next chapter of your story. I've seen it before. This is the mythology. And how many times a mythology story, the arc of it is so similar to human beings' arc. It's uncanny. And then I'm like, okay, this is what happens in the mythology story. Let's see what happens for you. And a month later, I get an email saying, that's what happened. You knew the ending.
So I just got permission to continue to binge on Beef season 2, which is amazing, by the way, and so profound.
Yeah.
So profound. Okay, before we end, we have one last thing we need to do. Vish, you've probably heard about that very famous trash can tarot.
Yes.
Which is where I spin the imaginary wheel and I pick a surprise question for you to answer. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Your surprise question. What question do you wish more people would ask themselves when they're hurting?
When people are hurting, the question I would like people to ask more is really very simply, what is the bigger picture here? What is the bigger picture? In the overall arc of my story, what is the context of this hurt? What is the purpose of this hurt? So yes, I'm hurting. I'm in the hurt. It doesn't feel good, but just step out for a moment and say, okay, my overall arc, overall context, what is the purpose of this? What am I to learn from this?
What is the purpose of my hurting?
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful reframe. Vish, as always, it is so much fun talking to you. Vish can be found at vishchatterji.com. Also, what are you? 3 episodes into your new podcast, Bending the Light?
One episode in and
one episode in and
yeah.
another one coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, another one coming out tomorrow. Exactly. Yeah. So by the time this airs, there'll be 2 full episodes and 2 like micro episodes.
You hit like 1,000 downloads in your first week, which is amazing. You have 2 books out that you can find under Vish's name, Vish Chatterji, Chatterji. Yes. And if you're interested in doing some amazing executive and/or leadership coaching with Vish using his East meets West approach, you can also find him on his website. My friend, so lovely.
You're so kind. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. I appreciate this time with you. It was very special. I don't know how we got where we got to. I hope everyone enjoyed, but it was really like a step into a vortex for us.
I love it. I love going into vortexes. We know that. Thank you, Vish.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with me and for having the courage to listen inward. If you'd like to continue the journey, you can find me at bravedirections.com, and there you can sign up for my newsletter and something really exciting. If you're ready to begin exploring your own inner terrain, I've created something called 5 Days to Truth. It's a complimentary 5-day meditation journey that helps you start gently digging into your own trash and discovering what's there waiting for you. So until we meet again, be kind to yourself and trust what's emerging, because inside the muck lives the gold.
Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to a Magic Thread Media podcast.